All right. Well, scheduled for 11:01's close enough, I suppose. Had a couple technical difficulties, like finishing my slides last second. So, of course, hopefully you're here. Let me know in the chat, and I'll pop your stuff up as long as it's not too heinous. Um, let's start off by what have I covered since last week? First off, I will say the coffee I'm drinking is massively strong. For some reason, I'm super jittery today. Um, but anyway, so what have I covered since last week? So last week I taught my class. I finished up my CIS class. The class is really, yeah, it's Stephen Kellogg. Is this thing on? I don't think so. Maybe not. I don't know if anybody can hear me. No, I tease. So last week was my class. It's kind of a good and a bad thing. The class didn't have a lot of students this time, which I've had as many as 20. Sometimes I've had 5. And in this case, it's one of those 5 cases. And everybody asked me, like, when is it too few people? I'm like, I don't know. One, like, as long as they regularly show up, I'll still meet with them. Maybe it just means I don't have anything to offer. But the nice thing about a smaller class is, like, you get a lot of good questions. You get a lot of very intimate things that people might be afraid to ask that they're not afraid to ask when it's just 2 people or 3 people or 4 people on the call. So in that, you know, realm, I've got some really great questions. So 3 hours last week. Had a live stream with Pax 8 and Drop Suite, fireside chat, just talking about identity and this kind of concept of identity existing outside of Microsoft Entra or wherever your identity plane might be. And there's a good idea maybe to have backups or not have backups. I thought that was a good conversation. Met with an old friend, Shai Cohen. If you're out there, if you're getting to listen to this, I haven't talked to him in a while, ever since he was kind of asked out of or left his former organization that he started and founded due to some investment choices. And it's just been great to see him come back. He's trying to solve a mission that I think is a good one. And more importantly, when he does ask my advice, he seems to listen, which is at least valuable for me. I don't want to waste time if I'm not going to help someone. What else happened? So had our framework mapping ongoing meeting with Stephen Kellogg, who's actually here, trying to get that, infrastructurally over and moved under CyberRise, the charity, and get the infrastructure spun up and the relationship between that and Pax 8 spun up. And maybe this is a good time to speak towards it or reinforce it, is that framework mapping that we're doing is something that the charity is managing the governance and structure of, so that we can make sure it maintains its integrity and has the community involved. And Pax 8 is using it on a commercially free license, right? A Creative Commons BY license that Jason and I spoke towards last time we streamed. And so can anybody else that wants to use that. The other thing I'll speak towards, and I'm going to bring them up later, is Empath. Somebody finally realized the length of my beard on a logo. Like, I don't know if it was intentional, but like, it's so good. Like everybody else, you have to like move it out of the way to read what it says. Anyways, it's funny. Okay, so that was Tuesday. I had the framework mapping meeting, met about boot camps. Security boot camps can be so fun with Pax 8. In April in Chicago. It's going to be a very murder mystery style, built around a CTF type structure. I think it'll be fun. Maybe it'll be too nerdy, but I think it's going to be a good time. We're going to build a company and kick it down. Anyways, so had that meeting. Let's see, what else did I do that was fun? Had the game, first week of the game back. And what's funny is we had a mention on the game. What we're doing with the game this year is trying to do a couple of episodes where it's just Dom and I on a keyboard doing something, playing around with some tool or digging into some tool. Yeah, the elephant has hair. I suppose he technically does. Like legitimately, I suppose. Yeah, he's got hair now. It's a horrible hair, but it covers up the face. But anyways, so this live stream, we chose to do Graph Runner, which is a device-based. It's not really a phishing. It's not meant to be for device phishing. It would work. It would just have to be very timely on how you delivered the email to when you got them to click. It's more likely to be phishing related, just for the timeliness, the proximity of creating the request and registering the device. But the device phishing is being used like actively right now. And so Dom made a link to it today or yesterday on LinkedIn about a threat actor using device phishing. And so it's just relevant that we brought up TLDR. If you didn't watch the episode, go block device phishing and device workflows in conditional access in Microsoft if you don't need them, if you're not using them. There's just no sense in them being there. And so go ahead and use conditional access as your friend there. Another one of those where it might be beneficial for Microsoft to make those their default policies and have us have to default disable them, just like turning off our seatbelts. that we can do, much to our own benefit or diminish. So anyway, so I had the game. That was dope. That was fun getting that back off the ground and getting that started again on our weekly show. It's going to be fun. If you'd like to do something or show off a tool or be involved and it's not just a commercial purpose or commercial pitch, then I'd love to have you come on the game and do something with Dom and I. So please reach out if that's something you're interested in. All right, that just gets us to Wednesday. Had a few more meetings, got our CTFD platform started for the PAX 8 show. Let's see, what else did I have? Again, meeting about Framework Navigator. Had a Trustmark working group, and it was really good because we actually got to see some of the assessment work. This working group is kind of doing the assured aspect, right? When someone gets their assessment, they're done with their assessment, they now have their POAM. We're kind of just looking at the POAM. And as much as I can share from a non-disclosure perspective, we're trying to determine how good does the POAM make me feel about where plan of action and milestones, if anybody's not familiar, how good does the POAM make me feel about their understanding of the control, the breadth of their control? And there's a lot to be gleaned from it technically, but also from an administrative, can they even do that? Can they get this POAM done in the time frame they think they're going to get it done in? So that's the assessment we're trying to make. And that's tough to do, right? But we had a good working group meeting on that. It was great, Chris. Thank you. That gets us through Wednesday. Thursday, there was the 7th annual Managed Security Services Forum Denver that I participated in. That's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-hour thing, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-hour thing. That I did 2 hours of presentation, one on a panel with some awesome guests. Like, it was fantastic, some of the conversation, I thought. And then also with Pillam, did a fireside chat kind of about this convergence of MSP, MSSP, vis-a-vis the channel, speaking specifically to SMB channel, less so when it comes to the very horizontally verticalized, I suppose, or I guess it's not, I guess that wouldn't be vertical. I don't know, I'm stupid, but you know what I mean? The horizontal kind of structured, this SLA, this service, I do this one thing for you. Whereas MSPs are kind of wearing this hat of having to turn the wrench and do everything, and MSSPs having service providers like the Huntresses and the Black Points and the, blah, 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 Sophos. I don't want to miss anybody else. I can't, I'd go on forever. It's just impossible. Sorry. Anyways, but the point is, like, where does that line live? That was a good talk. So spent most of the day doing that. And then all day Friday was like security boot camp, creative working sessions, trying to build some cool creative collateral to go with it. We got an awesome creative team at PAX 8 doing some cool stuff with us on that. Had a live stream with Robert Chiaffi and Jason Slagle, and that kind of rounded out my Friday. A little more work there, and a couple calls over the weekend. But that really brings us to, ultimately, what have I gotten to so far? I'm only at 17 presentations so far this year. So that would be live stream presentations or on stage presentations. I'm at 14 hours of educational courses that I'm teaching so far this year. I think I've got another one next week. And then 12 flights, 24 nights. That hasn't changed. 18 ride shares, 2 trips, and 14 cities. So that has not changed. So that gets us caught up. What did I get that done in? Just about 9 minutes. Awesome. So anybody checking in the 9 or 10 minutes of this stream mark is where we're going to get into the topic I want to do. And if this sets the kind of stage for what I plan on doing with these, this is just going to be my thoughts and soliloquy, disclosures, discussions, things, and whatever anybody chats and wants to hear about. So to that point, if anybody's here in the chat, please ask any questions you might have. But I'm going to kick right into conflict of interest, which is what I wanted to talk about today. This is just a definition from University of Central Florida. They all came to similar conclusions and concepts. But what is a COI? Conflict of interest occurs when an individual's personal interest, because we are humans, we has Maslow's hierarchy of needs we cares about, right? Personal interest, family, friendships, financial or social factors could compromise his or her judgment, decisions, or actions in the workplace. And so you have to both judge, like, what are their capabilities in the workplace? Like, what do they do? What influence they have? What things can they manage? And then what are the conflicts potentially, right? What is that, to put it in the CIA terms, MICE, the money, ideology, coercion, or ego, the methodologies of manipulating someone. One of those being money, right? And that's where they speak towards financial, family being the coercion aspect, ideology being social factors, things of that nature. So the point is, what I'm speaking towards is like conflict of interest. How well do people disclose conflict of interest? And I think if I'm judging it, everything I'm going to talk about here is pretty much the totality of where I could have some type of financial COI. Friendships can't speak towards too much, obviously, and social factors, I'm pretty vanilla. But the point being is, what are my financial compromises that might be there? And I'm just going to disclose it. I would also call others to disclose it if you can. There are things that are contractually not possible. Like you just can't say anything about it, right? Like that is what it is sometimes. But I would ask you to kind of judge, like, when do you find yourself in that position? Like, why do you find yourself in that position? And I'm not saying that I've done this perfectly, but I would just say I've been blessed to have the people that believe in me, that I believe in, be mutually okay with transparency where possible. And so I'm going to try to make sure I dance that line, but also share the things that I'm doing and that I'm involved in. So let's get started. Who are those companies that I have some type of financial relationship with or advisory? The first one that I'd bring up, oh yeah, by the way, here's the other reason I'm doing this. Jason Slagle brought this up about usually 6 months ago, but feels like 5 years ago, about some of the revised stuff in 2023 around social media influencers in general, people that hold a position of influence, things of that nature, testimonials on advertisement, even going so as far as to say if someone checks or likes a post that might be someone they have a financial interest with, you might want to disclose. So this is kind of my mechanism of doing so. Also had somebody point out on one of my LinkedIn posts, there is actually a checkbox for LinkedIn for me to do that. So I will start doing that when there's anything that might be something I have some kind of like financial influence in. And sometimes it's very readily apparent. Like, right, for the first example, I work for Pax8. I am employed gainfully, I think gainfully, by Pax8. And why do I want to bring this one up? It's on all my socials. Everybody knows who I work for. I work for Pax8. I try to represent myself well for Pax8. But why do I want to bring it up here? Pax8, from a what do I have influence in perspective, is very little internally. I, for the most part, have an influence in the security aspects of social things. I have some degree of influence on products we bring in around security, but mainly just on is this technically a viable product or not? Do I believe this works? Not so much in bringing it in. So stop. If you're reaching out to me, I don't have that influence, right? So I just straight up say it. I'm just basically a nerd for that. And really Kat and other humans that are there, I won't name names for OPSEC perspective. Now I just screwed that up. They do an amazing job of doing that before it ever comes to me seeing it. So there's very little there, and I try to very much disclose it when I have it. But the other reason I want to bring it up is that most of what I do for Pax8 is external. In fact, Pax8 was the first to believe in a dream I had and a belief I had that y'all were tired of buying marketing crap, that y'all wanted education, that you wanted people that empowered them, that drove them forward, that heard their problems, that drove through the security challenges, very specifically in my vein and vector, but in all kinds of things. It doesn't just stop with security, right? So I'm blessed enough to work for a company that allows me to do it the way I want to do it for the most part. They let me speak. I'm speaking at RSA. I got to speak to Fortune 100 CISOs and all the way down to end customers on a regular basis. I think some like 7 or 8 last year, and I'll highlight those when they happen this year. I have a few of them, two in Canada actually, which is awesome, coming up in May. So it's going to be super cool. So Pax8 is an amazing employer. I don't just get paid to say that. I believe that they've had me here longer than almost any other company, other than the one that I was till I sold for I think 11 years, 10 years. And so Pax8, I'm almost at 4 years here, and they've been an awesome employer. So I'll bring that up. So been very cool. And obviously I did not say the D word. We are a marketplace. So I just want to make sure I got that out there, because I think I messed up on a webinar the other day. If anybody catches me. All right, who else? So the next one would be Red Queen Dynamics. And I've realized that I've kind of scrolled this in too far for you to see, but this is Red Queen Dynamics. What kind of relationship do I have with Red Queen Dynamics? When I went down this journey of being involved in other companies, and maybe I'll back up a smidge. I actually have been involved in advisory for companies since back in the early Choose Networks days, really back with Continuum. I mean, that would have been 2013, 14, 15, whatever it was. And since then, I've been involved in various different 26 advisory panels for companies. And I don't say that to be aggrandizing. I just mean I've been doing this for a long time because it served our interests, right? At Iconic, it was anybody we spent $1 million a year with or more. I wanted to be on their advisory panel. I wanted to vote. I wanted a seat at the table. I wanted to know when I needed to turn a big ship that turned really slowly, right? From at least the perspective I was in charge of under Tony Miller. And so I've been on a lot of different advisory panels. And so when I was kind of looking at how I can help serve my mission the best, I said, well, I can only take on a certain number, but can I give advisory to some companies in more of a relationship? And one of those was from Red Queen Dynamics. And it's mainly because she did a really cool, and that's Tara Wheeler. In fact, I'll just kick to the next slide here with Tara Wheeler. She believes in her mission, She's hard charging. She is working very, very scrappily to build a collection mechanism that I just believe in, right? The methodology, whether it winds up being something that gets sold as its own or as a bolt on the compliance platforms or all the things that play out there, but it's crowdsourcing of questions from the end consumers and the end humans in an organization instead of asking your policy. Your policy might tell what you think it is. Your policy might say what you believe is going on, but what your users know is what matters. And so for them, I'm an advisor. I've been brought in as a brain. I like to say, am I selling my face or am I selling my brain? Here, I'm selling my brains. I don't have all that pretty a face, but mainly it's a can I give advice on what I think really ties into frameworks, various things that I think sometimes get misrepresented or miscalculated. And Tara's been amazing to listen to me when I have fit with thoughts and bring me in an advisory role. That was just a pure stock play. I'm invested in their future. They've given me a very little bit of stock, and I'll be an advisor as a board advisor. So easy disclosure there. I'm helping give advice in that regard. And also, I should note that when it comes to people trying to come to Pax8, if I have an advisory relationship of any sort, I typically recuse myself, or at least let people quite aware of the potential COI and conflict of interest. Okay. What else? INFIMA. All right. INFIMA cybersecurity, INFIMA awareness training, INFIMA phishing training. I met Joel and team about what is it now? 2025. This would have been 17 or so, 2017 maybe. Correct me if I'm wrong, boys, from INFIMA. But and I also met to record with them some awesome video I was going to play here, but like just totally failed and it got out of my record queue. I don't have a copy of it, so pretend like we just sat down and did a fireside chat talking about why. But I'll kind of recap. I have some shares from Info. They don't pay me any cash on a monthly basis, but I believe in where they're going because of how well they listen to me. So it's quite a selfish reason, I would say. But a long time ago, I was talking about how I believe there was a path to save a lot of MSPs the setup headache of making exclusions in SMTP and in filtering policies and in SPF records to allow a platform to deliver phishing testing. Instead, I believed that the massive part of the constituency could be delivered vis-a-vis a direct mail injection or DMI type methodology. INFIMA was on the call with me. I gave some advice back to them and said that's what I would need out of a platform, and they just did it. They just called me back and said, "Yeah, we used the combination. I think if SOAP and Graph at the time was how they did it with Microsoft. I'm not 100% sure of how they accomplished it, but they were able to make it where you could just accept an enterprise app and then inject the mail with headers and all the information you needed to test and not have to make a hole in the outside delivery mechanism. It would only be by that, API key and secret to that enterprise application from their platform. It also gave you the ability to get more creative with what you set it sent as, blah, blah, blah. And so that was the very basis of their 3 clicks. that literally was the beginning. And so I'm going to be straight up. Joel just reached out and said, "Hey, listen, I'm gonna give you some shares. Thank you for your advice and help and friendship. And in general, I said thank you. I love what the team does. I believe in them. There's some awesome humans. I get to wear bracelets from Kelsey that she makes for me. So, anyways, also have one of those dope jerseys with 3 on. Was that 3 stand for? 3 clicks. Why 3 clicks? Because you could click once, enterprise application, approve, click a second time, click third to say done, and you now had direct mail injection capabilities. You didn't have to go set up and get access to which SPF record, where's that DNS hosted. Now let's go look at the spam filter and make sure we have an exclusion in there, that we've done it in not an insecure way, that we've done it in something which is tough to do. Anyways, I'll get off my high horse, but that's why I'm involved with INFIMA, and that's the nature of the relationship. All right, the next one, EasyDMARC. Okay, this one is just an hourly advisory, an hourly kind of a little bit of doing some webinars and work with them from that perspective, but it's all about subject matter work and subject matter expertise of really just kind of, this is, DMARC, in my opinion, is one of those best highlights of how, and I don't want to sound sanctimonious because I've made these mistakes. I still make mistakes. I'll still make mistakes. But I think this is an example of how poorly practitioners understand the real challenge of these things. And DMARC has been one of the shining examples for me for the last 4 or 5 years in general of saying, oh yeah, I put in a DKIM key and I put in some SPF record. But do you look for recursion errors? Do you deal with the flattening of it somehow so that it's constant and done basis wise? Do you know who's sending on your behalf? Are you collecting the reports? Are you doing anything with them? All that kind of stuff. And EasyDMARC wanted to get that message out. I believe in that message. And the other thing I'll say about them is they're just a really cool engineering team. Like they'll build whatever. Sometimes maybe to their own chagrin, but they're willing to build anything. They've built some really cool tools that they don't charge for into that tools section up there that are kind of cool. But anyways, EasyDMARC and I have a kind of month-to-month relationship of hourly basis where I'm advising them, again, kind of a subject matter, paying me for the brain, much less the face, I guess, if that makes a difference. Not that I influence much, but tens of people, I think, at least 10 people potentially. But yeah, EasyDMARC is one of those relationships I have. CloudCapsule doesn't pay me anything. In fact, they've not given me anything. CloudCapsule is one of those where I have sold a company now twice. Once at the $40 million range. I wasn't the biggest owner. I was a very, very small owner. And again, at over 600 million. And so I think that that investment has paid off really well. And I'm taking a lot of that and reinvesting it in our world. One of those would be things that focus on cloud. Why cloud? I think it's no secret. I mean, I even wrote a book, which I did find out just this other day. I didn't even think about this to add it in the notes, but we've sold 536 copies, I think, of SASE edition. That doesn't count any author copies or copies we've given away or bought and given away ourselves. That's just copies people of you have bought them, which is super awesome because all that money goes towards giving away certificates for GTIA, or I guess that still stays CompTIA for CompTIA certificates. So anyways, side tangent. But I'm investing some of my money in companies that try to take cloud and manage that security front. Why? Well, in my belief, I think that as you start looking at the constituency that we serve predominantly, the small to mid-sized business, mid-enterprise, new startup companies that are in that startup going up big space, it's a lot of our constituency that I speak towards. Those companies are in a unique position that if they were all Azure Active Directory or Entra ID joined, all Entra extensible, all extensible into SaaS applications with similar SCIM mechanisms, group memberships, API centrism and capabilities, then one could manage a set of frameworks that one would apply, like CIS, let's say, and then one could take a product line and talk about its capabilities from this, let's say, framework mapping. I don't know if you're catching a little bit of a theme here that I'm working on. Then that framework mapping would allow us to say, to serve this CIS safeguard or this NIS2 safeguard, and you are in this platform, you just need to set this setting. Well, I'm looking to work with platforms that do that, CloudCapsule, others that are out there that I haven't invested in necessarily. But the other reason I invested in CloudCapsule specifically is Nick Ross, like just brilliant, T-minus 365, one of the nicest humans. I've gotten to work with him in adversarial, I suppose, conditions when I was a customer. I don't mean adversarial. I just mean I needed more than I could get from them, from the organization. When I was a customer of Pax8, Nick Ross was an amazing human to work with. He understood technically where I was going. We shared a common vision. He believed in where we were heading in the future. And then now that he has gone to SourcePass and then since has moved out to CloudCapsule's own company, I'm in, baby. Between him and Michael Dimlow. And I think there's like 6 people that are like OGs of Pax8 that are there that I just totally believe in where they're going. It meets my vision and my mission extremely well. And so that's why I've invested in CloudCapsule. All right, next, Integris. I just have some still there. I was part of the initial organization at Choose Networks that then became Iconic as we formed and sold there, and then Iconic sold to become part of Integris, and then the recent recap from Integris with new investors. And so I'm still invested in Integris. I believe in their mission. I believe in their capabilities. I believe in the deep integrations they've done. I believe there's maybe a little bit of home field pride, obviously there. So I could be potentially biased, obviously, but I am still an investor there. I just want to disclose it, and so I believe in them. So I just figured I'd put it there. All right, and then let's come to the last one that I think is all I really have to disclose. I'm a pretty boring fellow, I suppose, but yeah, Empath. I'm invested. I'm an investor in Empath. I'm also invested in Empath. Again, that serves my mission. I think you'll find a common theme of the things that I choose to involve my time with is things that serve a common mission. What is that? If you've ever been a lifeguard and you've watched somebody drown, you really don't want people to drown. Like it's just one of those inherent things. And so most of that comes from trying to build up the small to mid-sized business world to try to build up those that support it, the MSPs that are the lifeblood of that success story. And so, yeah, anyways, Empath is doing that mission from an education perspective of like this old adage. I think Satima Fowler's who I first heard it from. I'm sure it came from somewhere else before that. But of this, what if I train my users and they leave? What if I train my employees and they leave? Well, what if you don't and they stay? right? And it's this concept of, I think what's really neat is having a top-down visibility of all of the training that you're assigning and tracks that you're assigning for certain personas, even if you're collecting it from a lot of different places. For example, my site, YouTube, Pax8, or whoever might participate as a partner, you can consume that, aggregate that, and manage that almost as if an overarching LMS that ties all of that together for your users. They're creating a lot of really cool content. They've hired and brought together a lot of people that I love and respect, right? Alex Farling and oh gosh, if I start naming people, I'm just doing that. I'm just doing Wes and Alex. That's it. Sorry. I'm sorry about that. I suck, Kyle. I'm a terrible human. I guess now I've mentioned you. Anyways, whatever. Doesn't matter. This is my vlog anyway. But I believe in Empath and their mission. I believe they believe in my mission, which is important. I am also making a class for Empath and for Pax8 and for anybody that wants to consume it. That's just taking and breaking down each of the CIS safeguards, talking about them a little bit, talking about the visuals that we made and released for the community that are available on my website and also on Pax8's website. And just really kind of break down frameworks and framework mapping and frameworks in general for use for cybersecurity, both for defensibility as well as for defendability and defense capabilities. So yeah, anyways, but yeah, Empath, go Empath. And dope shirt makers capable of dealing with beards, it would seem, right? I didn't expect that to be the ancillary aspect, but yeah, I think that is really it from an influence perspective that I have. So and conflicts perspective. But what I wanted to do is really just kind of set a new kind of ask for anybody else in the community is say, like, if you can, share your conflicts. You know, Jason Slagle really kicked this off for me. He's also kicked it off more in talking about another relationship that he's involved with where some of those disclosures are being asked to be made. The other thing I'll make a note of is that everything that I've disclosed here has been through the conflict of interest, investments notwithstanding. I'm not over 10% of any of those companies, but anything that's paying me or has some financial relationship, I have filled out a conflict of interest form and gone through the conflict of interest interview process through my internal teams, as well as through my direct boss, who is Rob Ray, to say, here are the things I'm doing and what I'm involved in. And we had to make decisions on what was viable, how much of an impact would that make to Pax8, what are the downsides, what are the positives, right? And I would encourage you to take from that lesson of, like, do I have a conflict of interest policy? Do I speak towards it? Is that one guy or gal that's getting paid to go to trips with the vendor taking maybe the wrong choices to use that vendor because of relationships? Like, having an understanding of those, and I'll go to Lockpicking Lawyer said this best. He said, my job isn't to decide whether or not I have a conflict of interest for you. Like, it's for your job. My job is to disclose those things so that you're aware of them and you understand the financial positions that could be at play here, so that you can understand the motivations that I might have and make your own judgment call of whether there's a conflict of interest, right? And so it's all about the disclosure. I also want to end with, Rob Reck, our chief trust officer, has one of my favorite definitions of what is trust. And it is a 1-to-1 say-do ratio, meaning, like, if I say I'm going to do something, do it, right? And if something happens where that fails and I'm not able to, then I need to have hard conversations first, right? And I think this is an example of hard conversations first, of saying, like, A, I want to tell you if I have a conflict. That's 1-to-1 say-do. I think I'm doing that. I said that earlier this year and late last year. Number two is have the hard conversations first. It's kind of tough to get up here and say, hey, here are the companies I've invested in. Here's the people that I have a relationship from an advice perspective and then have a financial interest in. I mean, it's just tough to say those things sometimes, right? So, and then the last piece, which is the aligned incentives. And I think what I hope to at least lay out is that the things that I plan on giving my brain to and my time to and my experience and my history to are things that I hope move my needle. What is my needle? Anybody can say out there in this kind of world that knows me well is that I just don't want others to go through what I've been through and what I've seen. I mean, look at the Huntress of the world and what they see every day. Look at the Black Points of the world and what they see every day. And what we saw from emergency response team and continues to see, right? We saw our first MSP that bought a $2 million MSP and a year and a half later is now out of business from a major cyber event in their hosted Citrix platform. And it's just those kind of things that drive me. And that's why what I believe in is that at some point we'll get this stuff together. And systemically, I believe most of that for the SMB comes in making safer cars. Like, genuinely, just don't let me have a platform that lets this happen without having me turn it off and turn off the safety features in my Microsoft platform. but also in those companies that are doing that work, like CloudCapsule, and driving the education, raising the barrier, like Empath and Red Queen Dynamics, which is trying to crowdsource some of those things from the end consumers so you can measure it better, end humans to measure it better. So all of those have a thematic, in my belief, non-conflict of interest, in the sense that I am hoping to educate and rise the tide. I think the potentials that come to my mind would be those that are on marketplace that feel like they maybe would rather have time in that same way, and I haven't chosen them, but maybe not. Maybe nobody cares. That's my point, is just to put it out there. So Stephen said, interesting conversation could be had around conflict of interest and the vCIO, vCISO roles in MSPs. Gosh, Stephen, I mean, just right away, just off the hip thought there, you might be speaking towards the fact that a vCIO who principally is only there to sell you workstations and set that up has a direct one-to-one imbalance to some extent. There's some value there, and there's definitely replacement needs and reasons to do that. But disclosing those kind of things might be viable if that's where you're tackling that, is like, hey, this is where we're compensated. I don't think, conflict of interest in those ways are too big of a deal, in the sense that everybody knows you got to make a living. Everybody knows you're selling these products and you're using these products. But I do think having a great story of why you chose those products and why you go down this route and why it makes the most sense, whether they want to tackle that or not, is viable there, in my opinion. But I'd love to, maybe Stephen, maybe give some more color around that, and I'll be glad to tackle it more if I didn't really touch on it. But it's really around conflict of interest and the vCIO, vCISO roles in MSPs and what they're done. Could be around compensation, how they're paid, things of that nature. Maybe that's what you're speaking towards. Give it a little more color there, Stephen. We'll tackle it. Yeah. But continuing my request is like, is there anybody else that'll go out and do this? They'll just say, here's the companies I'm involved with, here's why I'm involved there, and here's what I think I have that could be a potential conflict. And also, if you're in a position where you would want to share that, but maybe can't, or there's something that you are not happy to talk about that you've taken as a relationship. I think my life advice of how I try to live my life, not that this is anything stellar, I definitely mess up just as much as anybody else. Like I said, this is my vlog. I can talk about what I want. But I think is really trying to find the balance where there's nothing that I would be embarrassed to tell anyone I do, other than my terrible singing in the shower. But like, there's nothing from a work relationship or quid pro quo give takes relationship, or things that could be conflicts like paying a spouse or things of that nature. About the worst of it is the weird balance of how one splits a check when Pax 8's refunding my food and not necessarily Cat's food, and how I have to do that. That could be where there's probably the blurriest lines. Maybe the other blurry lines for me might be like who pays for drinks sometimes, and trying to keep an eye on who's paying for the most drinks. And I don't believe that influences me, but it is one of those things that matters. But anybody in the comments, what are some of the things that you think are disclosable conflict of interests and what are not? And have I over disclosed? Is this stupid? I'm okay with that answer in the comments as well. So what are y'all's thoughts? And then I think I'm getting right on 30 something minutes. So I'll probably close this out. I'm trying to keep them pretty short. I'll wait a sec for any chats to come in, since there is the good old buffer. Okay. I'm gonna close it out. So no comments. I'll just say, if you have the ability, comment on this post or do a post of your own and just talk about, like, what are those conflicts? Why are you invested in those? And for me, I'm proud to talk about the ones I'm invested in. I'm proud to talk about the ones that I have some relationship and agree to advise. And I guess I said I was done, but I'm not. The other thing that for me, when it comes to being an advisor somewhere, I need two or three main things. The first one is, if you're going to bring me there, like, don't just bring me there to give me a dog and pony show, right? Like, absolutely be there to ask my advice, take my opinions. Doesn't mean you have to take them and do them. It just means you have to at least listen to me and understand them contextually for the reasons you've asked me to be there. That would be the thing that I would say is the first piece. The second piece is, like, when you're doing this, be able to execute, or be able to say you can't execute. I've taken on relationships where somebody's agreed to do, X a month, and they're only doing Y, which is some subset of X. And I feel like I'm stealing from them because I'm not giving them enough of the value they've asked for, right? And so it's kind of one of those things where, um, if you're going to bring people in as advisors, be able to execute. Don't just use them as dog and pony shows. And I used to do like a ranking score system of 1 through 10 of, like, where does this company fall in? Will they listen to me? Do I matter? Can I make influence on this from an advisory perspective? Or are they just here to, run around and show me things and hope I think it looks pretty, right? And that was the good majority were in the 2s to 3s. Pax 8 was an 8.5. They were listening to almost everything and making decisions on it and giving executive access. And that was one of the reasons I went to Pax 8. Okay, what Steven said was where the role is supposed to be giving strategic guidance that's right for the client, but the MSP wants to push product X. Yeah, I mean, I think you have that natural tension challenge probably too, Steven. I mean, that's goodness. I don't know if that's one I'd unpack under COI, but I also would. Like, it's one of those things where if you're coming in as a vCISO and you work for the MSP, the argument would be that you're going to drive X, but that argument also might have valid points of that's what my team can support, that's what's scalable, that's what this is offering. I'm in this kind of weird torn challenge there. Steven, you might have earned yourself a spot on a beard banter. Just chat through this one if you want to. I think it'd be fun. I feel like this is interesting because it exists in so many other things in so many other ways, but it's also typically naturally existing because that's the product that my AV team can use. They went down the line of whatever it might be versus another one. I could have remembered them a while back, but I don't. But anyways, so side tangent. Yeah, that's fun. I'm going to close it out. Don't want to make these things too long, but super excited to be involved and to be able to announce the partners that I am working with, the Red Queen Dynamics, Empath, and Pax8 obviously is quite known. It's been known for 3.5 years. I'm blessed to work for y'all. Thank you so much. I hope that disclosing and talking about these things doesn't cause challenges for anybody there. Yeah, I would say look at your own conflict of interest policies internally as an organization and see what they look like. And how much do you do as a board members, as people that are involved in things, as part of charities? Do you talk about that? And I guess that's the other thing I didn't cover. I am involved in 2 charities that could also potentially have conflict of interest, I suppose, that should be disclosed in this conversation. I just never end. One of those is MSP CyberX with Brian Hubbard. Brian had a passion and a vision, and he wanted some guidance on that. And I said I'd be glad to. That's one where I kind of got pulled in as a board member and advisor. I'm happy to be in with Joy Beeland and Brian and yeah, several Jennifer Vanderveer, several other humans, Max Pruger. But in that case, I really don't get participatory in anything other than trying to give advice of growth and strategy. So I don't have anything there. Don't take any money from the charity at all. Won't take any money from the charity as a board member. And then the other piece is the charity that I am the president of, I suppose should be disclosed here, CyberRise, which I made allusion to earlier. But CyberRise, I am the president of CyberRise along with Jason Schlegel and Robert Chiaffi. But the specific covenants of CyberRise that would prevent a lot of the financial influence aspect of it are that as the actual principal owners that are very hard to get rid of in that charity, we can't take $1, not a dinner, not a flight, nothing. I mean, we can pay for other things, other people's stuff, but we financially can't take $1. So that helps with that aspect. I suppose there could be some influence as it comes to like broadcasting, like the threat captain gave us an awesome donation and things that might come there, but I'm pretty clear about speaking towards those in the context that they are. So, but yeah, just didn't think about it. All right, closing it out. Got to go. Love y'all. Trying to keep these under 30 minutes. I'm at 37. So thank y'all so much for being here. Have a great day and look at your own conflict of interest policies and thoughts of where you